Welcome! In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the digital world and take a look at the secret language that builds every single website you've ever visited.
So let's just start with a basic question. Have you ever wondered what holds it all together? From the simplest blog to the most complex sites, what's the one common thread giving them all their shape?
Well, the answer is HTML. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is the absolute bedrock for everything you see online. Now, it's not a programming language, not really. It's a markup language, and its whole job is to give content its structure so a web browser knows what to do with it.
The best way to get your head around it is to think of it like this. HTML is the skeleton. It provides the fundamental structure, the bones, right? That holds all the content in place. The headings, the paragraphs, the images. Without that skeleton, a web page would just be a chaotic mess of text.
Okay, so if it's a skeleton, how does it actually work? To understand that, we've got to look at the three core building blocks that make up all of HTML: tags, elements, and attributes.
First up, we have tags. Think of these as little instructions for the browser, and they're always wrapped in these angle brackets. A tag, like the one you see here, is basically telling the browser, hey, whatever comes next, make it bold. It's the basic command.
Now, a tag by itself is just the beginning. When you take an opening tag, wrap it around some actual content, and then finish it with a closing tag, and notice that little / in there, you create a complete element. That is the full instruction that the browser can understand.
And finally, there are attributes. These are just extra bits of information you stick right inside the opening tag to tweak an element's behavior. For instance, with the link element, the href attribute is everything. It's what tells the browser where to go when somebody clicks.
So let's just put it all together. As you can see right here, the tag is the basic marker, like for a paragraph. When you add your text and the closing tag, you get the whole element. And to change it, you add an attribute to that first tag, maybe to center it. So tags build elements and attributes modify them. That's the whole relationship in a nutshell.
And here's something that's just fascinating. When you analyze the entire web, one single element, the anchor tag, that's the one we use for links, accounts for nearly a quarter of all HTML tags out there. It's the hypertext in hypertext markup language. It's literally what puts the web in the World Wide Web.
So we have our building blocks. Now let's see how they all snap together to actually build a web page from the ground up. Going from just lines of code to stuff you can actually see and read.
Every single HTML document, every one, has this fundamental structure. The main HTML tag wraps everything. Then you have the head, which is kind of like the backstage area. It holds all the important info for the browser that you don't see. And then there's the body. That's the main stage, where all the visible content lives.
Okay, let's start building inside that body. We'll add our very first piece of content, a simple paragraph. We'll use the P element to say hello world.
A paragraph is nice, but every page needs a title, right? For that, we use the H1 element. This is for the most important top-level heading. It gives our page a clear title that both people and search engines can immediately recognize.
And to make it a little more interesting, let's add an image. We use the image tag for that. And notice it has two really important attributes: src, which points to the image file, and alt, which provides a description for accessibility. It's also what's called a void element, which means it doesn't need a closing tag. And just like that, we have a basic web page.
And this, right here, is where the magic happens. Your browser doesn't actually show you those P or H1 tags. No, it reads them as instructions, like a blueprint, and then it renders the final visual web page that you see. The code is the recipe. The web page is the cake.
So you get the basics of building a page, but what really separates a basic page from a good one? Well, it comes down to interaction, meaning, and really understanding HTML's role in the bigger picture.
The web isn't just for reading anymore. We need to interact with it, so HTML gives us tools for that. We can add a button for users to click, or different input fields to collect data, for text or checkboxes. And all of these are usually wrapped up inside a form element, which manages how all that user data gets collected and sent. This brings us to a really crucial concept in modern web development. It's not enough to just make a page work.
You need to build it with elements that clearly describe the meaning of their content. This whole idea is called semantic HTML. See, for years, developers just used generic div tags for everything, and then they'd add a class name like header. But HTML5 gave us much better tools. So now, instead of that generic div, you use a proper header element. Instead of a div with an ID of footer, you just use footer. It's not just a name change, it's a totally different way of thinking.
And why does this matter so much? Well, using the right tag for the right job is a game changer. It makes your code way easier for other developers to understand. It is absolutely essential for things like screen readers to navigate the page for visually impaired users. And it's a huge boost for SEO because you're telling search engines exactly what your content is about.
And this idea isn't new. This quote gets right to the heart of a principle that's been around for decades. You have to separate your content from your presentation. HTML's job is to define the what, the structure, not how it looks.
And that principle is exactly why HTML doesn't work alone. It's part of a team. To handle all the presentation and style, the colors, the fonts, the layout, we use another language called CSS. And for all the behavior and interactivity, the muscles of the site, we use JavaScript.
Let's bring back our analogy one last time, because it just nails this concept perfectly. HTML builds the skeleton. It gives the body its shape. But it's CSS that comes in and provides the clothes, the visual design that actually brings it to life.
Understanding this separation of powers is really the key to the whole modern web. HTML's job is to define what something is, a heading, a paragraph, a list. It's up to other tools to decide how it looks and acts. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. Now that you can see the skeleton, how will you choose to dress it up?